I'm kind of curious what you guys think of this. As predicted and hinted at, publisher Electronic Arts has revealed its new Battlefield game, and it is indeed a seemingly ambitious game that aims to go directly after not only its primary competitor in Activision's Call of Duty franchise, but the many other battle royales and multiplayer suites that are keeping players busy in recent years. For starters, the game is called Battlefield 2042, and it comes to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 this fall on October 22nd. 4 primary EA-owned studios are working in tandem on the game, Electronic Arts' first true push into Call of Duty style development. EA's team DICE, perhaps its best known or its most important studio and the keepers of the Frostbite engine, are working alongside DICE LA, now run by Respawn co-founder Vince Zampella, Need for Speed studio Criterion, which also recently provided support on 2017's Battlefront 2 and 2018's Battlefield 5, and recently renamed EA Gothenburg, once known as Ghost Games, also known for Need for Speed. The most important thing about Battlefield 2042, however, is that it's multiplayer only. That's right, Battlefield is eschewing single player functionality completely, instead going all in on massive multiplayer maps. The PS4 version will be able to support up to 64 players, but if you play on PlayStation 5, each map can support up to 128 players. It's a bit of a disappointment for single player fans who grew accustomed to Battlefield's single player campaigns, but necessary to accommodate the scope of the multiplayer suite, apparently. The entire game does have background, though. It takes place in a world in 2042 that's starting to suffer from the effects of global warming and resource shortages, though EA has been quick to note, to some consternation, that their game is in no way a social or political commentary. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But Chris, let's start right here. Steve Hamilton wrote into us on Patreon. He says, "Hello, boys. Can we get Chris's initial thoughts on Battlefield 2042? I haven't been much into multiplayer games in recent years, but that has me really hyped and excited for more gameplay footage." So what did you think, Chris, of Battlefield?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I didn't like a lot of the changes that Battlefield 5 made. I think they kind of because that game, the foundation of that game is actually good. It's just like really minor surface level things that just like really screwed the flow of the experience. And if they can learn from that in a future-ish kind of battle, which is exactly what I wanted, by the way. I was literally like, okay. Futuristic Battlefield, not exactly 21, not crazy future, but
right.
I think it's this weird kind of compromise between Dustin and me, where it's like we'll go into the future, but not so much that it doesn't feel like modern combat.
There's no laser guns.
Yeah, there's no laser guns or anything. But I'm happy about that. I don't really care personally that there's no single player, because the last single player campaign that I cared about in Battlefield was probably. Battlefield 1's was okay, and I like the Bad Company games, kind of, but it's never really been a single-player thing for me. It's always been about, that big, the promise of that really large-scale, hectic warfare that kind of leans into the realism a little bit more than your standard Call of Duty fare or, any other FPSs that were, popular around the time that those games were big. I like this emphasis on multiplayer. I love that in the trailer they paid homage to that amazing viral clip from Battlefield 3 of the dude diving out of the jet and that's because I was showing that to my roommates. So my roommate was like, "That's ridiculous," and I was like, "Nah, that happened. That's a real thing." And I just love that they're getting in touch with the multiplayer roots of that series. I don't mind at all that there's no campaign. I'm curious. If it's a battle, I'm curious if this is a Black Ops 4 situation where they were making a campaign and then they just decided to scrap it, or if this is actually genuinely just we'll use those resources authentically on the multiplayer instead.
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing to me. I'm curious how planned a lack of a campaign was. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it looks cool. We haven't seen gameplay yet. Obviously, we've just seen the trailer, the cinematic trailer as of the day that we're recording this. One thing that I will say, and this is just a point of concern, how are you going to compete with do we know if it's $70?
I don't.
Next gen.
Yeah, I think it is.
Or
I think
current
it is
gen.
$70. Yeah, current gen. So PS5 70, PS4 will be 60.
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing. Presumably this game is going to launch this fall. This is going to be a $70 multiplayer only game with, hopefully a decent amount of content, but I'm even just thinking about Halo Infinite in that time that has free to play multiplayer. And I'm just wondering if that is a risky, especially after Battlefield 5, it seems like a weirdly confident thing to say, here's a $70 exclusively multiplayer experience. I have no doubt that it's going to be an impressive title, and I think it'll be good. I'm just curious whether or not that $70 price tag on a multiplayer-only game, especially in an era where we're getting a lot of high-quality free-to-play stuff, I wonder if that's going to help or hurt it. We'll see.
Yeah, it's ironic you bring up the Halo comparison, which is really apt because, and we've talked about this on the show, when Halo Infinite was at E3 one year with all the TVs on stage, so that was 2018? They were going to reveal Halo Infinite's Battle Royale mode at that point. And the reason that they didn't is because Battlefield 5 was revealed, as you guys might recall, the day before, and everyone hated it because it was all that Battle Royale stuff. And so there were all these conspicuous televisions on stage, and I don't know if they're still going to do that mode or not, but it just reminded me that, yeah, they're going to be going head-to-head in some way. Microsoft has a huge inside advantage with Halo, not only because it's just bigger, but because people have been waiting for so long for it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. Dustin, how are you feeling about Battlefield 2042?
I think Chris brings up an incredible point because I was thinking along the same lines, but I wasn't thinking about Halo's free-to-play multiplayer.
Yeah. With a campaign, by the way. So it's even more feature complete. So it's like, well, I don't know, man. It's interesting.
Well, and that's the funny thing about, I was thinking about this, and a lot of people don't care about the campaign in either Call of Duty or Battlefield. But with things like this, people like the fact that they're there. It makes them feel like their money is better spent, even if they don't use it. It's like it adds value, perceived value. Obviously, it has no value if you don't play it, technically. But the fact that it's there makes you feel more confident in your purchase. So for them to come out with a $70 game, multiplayer only, it doesn't bother me, personally. If they gotta come out and show the goods, though, that, you're getting technically less than their last release. You're not getting a campaign, but it's so good. The multiplayer will be so good that it doesn't matter. It is worth the price of admission. And I don't know, I feel like this is especially risky because these games do not have good launches on multiplayer. You may famously remember Battlefield 4's launch on PlayStation 4. The game didn't fucking work for, it felt like weeks.
That was a launch game, wasn't it?
Yeah. So not only does it need to be worth the omission of campaign, whether you care about it or not, it needs to be worth that, and it needs to work day one, or it seems like it's going to be trouble.
Yeah, and we have a letter here from BP Mufasa87 on Patreon. He writes and says, "Hello, gentlemen. Are people really surprised Battlefield 2042 doesn't have a campaign to this point? The last two releases had campaigns that were basically just repurposed multiplayer maps. A few years ago, I could see people getting frustrated by this, but in 2021, it seems like an obvious decision due to how expensive single-player campaigns are to make and how little they are played in games like this. However, with games like Warzone and Apex Legends being free to play, do you feel a $70 price tag is too much?" I just wanted to say real quick about this. In my own mind, I kind of come down on the side of like, you got to put a campaign in this. And the reason, and they're not going to, but the reason is because they're putting more resources into this game than ever. They're making a big deal out of the fact that they have a huge collaborative effort going on. Now, this has always happened with these big games, but they've never really been overt about it before. And I just feel like the campaign is like the easiest thing to do. The only, I know it's not easy in quotes, but it is all built on the other resources and assets from the game. And so maybe that has something to do with it, where they're just going to be done so late that there's no room to kind of build off of it. But I think it's a mistake, not only from that value proposition, like you're saying, Dustin, but because Call of Duty got reamed for doing this a couple of years ago and they brought the campaign back. Now, as Chris had noted, and we had noted on the show, as far as I understand, that campaign was just canceled because it just wasn't coming along. That's when Raven was promoted at Activision and all of that. But I'm just kind of confused about it too, because I don't know that it can necessarily compete in this market. Remember, Call of Duty's coming out this winter as well, but also Warzone is getting a massive update at that time. It's free. Call of Duty Mobile is free. Apex Legends is free. Fortnite is free. We're going to be dealing with the likes of Overwatch and Valorant and all this other shit forever. So
even Destiny 2 right now is free to jump into.
Destiny 2. And Sony's clearly investing, as we're going to talk about shortly, in their own shooter franchises. So I don't know. Hey, this is the good news. In 2016, Battlefield 1 came out right next to Titanfall 2, and they competed with each other and killed each other. At least they're not going to have to deal with that this time.
That is true.
So that's good. But we'll see. We'll see how. Well, I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I am still looking forward to it. I'm eager to play a new Battlefield, especially in a modern-esque kind of, because Battlefield 1 I enjoyed, but there's something about the aesthetic of Battlefield 4 and like modern combat that is really fun. So I think it'll be good. I'm just like, I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch for certain.
Definitely. And also, we'll be keeping, to Dustin's point, a very close eye on the fidelity of the game, because you're right. Although EA has been doing better, I think, generally with this, because they get slammed server side with FIFA and everything when those games come out and all of that too. And they've seemed to have kind of ironed those things out. I don't know though. We'll find out. I appreciate the gusto, bringing basically 20% of your studios into making this game but it's just like, why not just have one of them make a campaign? Anyway, I am not really looking forward to it because I don't look at scope as necessarily a good thing. I think it's cool. I remember playing Battlefield 1 in 2016 online and being like, this is kind of cool. I remember being on like a big desert map and, everyone's doing their Battlefield things with all the vehicles. But to me, I like those more close combat, single player, me and you kind of thing. And so it just doesn't, it's like when I kind of glazed over, I'm like, all right, I get it. It's like airplanes and fucking tanks for 5 minutes. I get it. Right.